This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
If you're like most people, you probably have this mental picture of Aristotle's history that's very neat. A little too heroic, maybe.
The classic story.
Right, the one we all learned. The great philosopher's work, collected by the Islamic world, sits there for centuries gathering dust.
Then, so the story goes, they just lose interest, abandon him, a philosophical foundling left on the doorstep.
Until, of course, Thomas Aquinas comes along, this noble figure scoops him up, brings him to Europe's new universities, and that happy family reunion leads. Well, it leads directly to the scientific revolution.
And that whole narrative, which has been, the standard for centuries, it's almost entirely fiction. It's a comforting story for sure, but the reality is not just more complex. It's pretty much the exact opposite of that peaceful inheritance.
The exact opposite.
Structurally, yes. Aristotle's system was absolutely the bedrock of modern knowledge, but that knowledge wasn't nurtured. It was born from really intense political conflict, intellectual domestication, and in the end, systematic destruction.
Okay, let's just tear that whole story down then. For this deep dive, we are going to unpack the true story of how Aristotle really arrived in the modern world. We're looking at 3 huge reversals of that myth. So first, how Islam didn't abandon Aristotle at all. It became his greatest practical heir.
Yeah.
Before, you said, politically killing him.
Right. Then second, how Europe didn't just raise him. They were terrified of him. They chained him, domesticated him.
And third, and this is the one that really gets me, how modern science was born by systematically destroying Aristotle, not by, standing on his shoulders.
Exactly. We're going to follow this one intellectual system as it gets turned from a bureaucratic tool in the East into a theological prisoner in the West, and then finally into the punching bag whose destruction basically created every academic field you know today. It's really a story about how knowledge, when you tie it to power, becomes a weapon.
Let's start with reversal number 1 then, this whole abandonment myth, the idea that Islam just got bored. What do the sources say about the Abbasid Caliphate? What were they actually doing?
Well, abandon is almost insulting, really. The Abbasid Caliphate during the Islamic Golden Age was the single most ambitious collector, translator, and practical applicator of his work in history.
So not just dusty scrolls.
No, not at all. They were actively using his logic, his physics, his whole methodical approach to build the actual infrastructure of a massive functioning empire.
Okay, so he was a practical tool. What did that look like? I mean, in practice.
Think about governance. Aristotle gives you a framework for classification, for analysis. That was huge for medicine.
Yeah.
You get figures like Avicenna or Ibn Sina. But the real killer app was for statecraft.
Bureaucracy.
Exactly. Complex tax systems, land administration, the whole political machine. And Avicenna was central to this. He didn't just write philosophy. He took Aristotle's sometimes scattered ideas and rationalized them, systematized them into this powerful, coherent framework that could justify the state.
So he made Aristotle the operating system for the government.
That's a great way to put it. He made him politically safe and administratively essential. And then you get the other guy, the second string. Averroes, or Ibn Rushd.
Okay.
Averroes comes along later and he looks at Avicenna's work and thinks he's contaminated the original genius. He's the purist. He sees all that state-friendly ornamentation and he just scrapes it all off. He wanted pure, undiluted Aristotelianism.
He was trying to get to the dangerous core.
Precisely. Averroes was saying things like, philosophical reason is superior to theological revelation, or that the world is eternal. I mean, that just flew in the face of creation doctrine. It was pure philosophical dynamite.
And that sets up the collision. So the brutal part, the political death. If the Islamic bureaucracy was running on Aristotle, why on earth did they throw him out? If it's working, why kill your intellectual backbone?
Because the fight was never really about philosophy. It was a power struggle, a turf war for control of the state.
Between who?
You had Avicenna's faction, the rational, often secular administrators who ran the government, versus Ghazali's faction, the religious legal scholars, the ulema, the people who champion Sharia law.
So Ghazali wasn't just having a debate. He was leading a bureaucratic coup.
That is the core insight here. Ghazali saw this rational, Avicennian-backed administration as a direct political threat to the power of the religious legal system. He called Aristotle a logical weapon invading religion.
Wow.
His famous book, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, it wasn't some academic paper. It was a political hit job. It was designed to completely delegitimize the intellectual framework of his rivals and shift state power back to Sharia-centered authority.
So Aristotle was just collateral damage. You rip out the plumbing to win the turf war.
That's it. He suffered an institutional death. When Ghazali's faction won, the OS that ran the other side had to be deleted. The exile of Averroes later on was just the final symbolic nail in the coffin. Islam didn't get tired of Aristotle, they politically assassinated him.
That completely changes the story. He wasn't abandoned, he was killed. Which brings us to reversal number 2. Europe picks him up. The Toledo Translation School in the 12th, 13th centuries, it gets this massive knowledge package.
And it's not just Aristotle, it's the whole debate. They get the dangerous, pure Averroes version and the politically successful Avicenna version all at once.
And at first they love it.
Oh, they were intellectually starved. This was like miracle knowledge. But that excitement, it turned to fear almost immediately.
Why? I mean, wasn't this the knowledge they needed to build universities?
It was, but they were also getting intelligence from the East. They knew this very system had caused huge political problems for the Islamic world, and they could see why. The ideas from Averroes, that pure reason is above revelation, that was completely doctrine-destroying for the Catholic Church.
Can you give me an example? What was so dangerous?
The big one was the idea that the world is eternal. If pure reason is right, the universe has always existed. It was never created.
Which completely contradicts the book of Genesis. Creation out of nothing.
Exactly. It destabilizes the entire theological foundation of the state.
And this panic leads directly to the 1277 Paris ban.
Precisely. Bishop Tempier's ban was an explicit, panicked political move. It was, we cannot let what happened there happen here. They saw the power of an unchained Aristotle and knew if they didn't control him, he would unravel their authority, just like he threatened the Ulemas.
So this is where the hero of the myth, Thomas Aquinas, steps in. The story says he saved Aristotle, but if the church is panicking, what did he actually do? You said he chained him?
He was the ultimate intellectual domesticator. Let's go back to that sword analogy. Avicenna put all the rich Islamic ornamentation on Aristotle's sword to make it useful. Averroes, the purist, scraped it all off to reveal the pure, dangerous steel blade underneath.
And Aquinas takes that polished, dangerous blade.
And he forcibly carves the cross onto it. His job was to subjugate philosophy to theology. He made it the ancilla theology, the handmaiden of theology. Philosophy can go this far, but no further. Then it has to stop and bow to divine revelation.
But how did he get around those direct contradictions? The eternal world problem.
He pulled off a masterful trick. He used Averroes' pure structure as the public-facing textbook, but secretly he used Avicenna's system as his cheat sheet.
A cheat sheet? What was the concept he took?
The essence-existence distinction. It's a bit technical, but Avicenna developed it. It let Aquinas argue that, okay, maybe a thing has the essence of existing forever, but the actual act of existing is separate and requires a divine cause.
I see. So he separates what a thing is from that a thing is.
Exactly. And in that little gap, he finds the room to fit a creator god back into an eternal-looking universe. It was an incredibly clever move to solve a political problem.
So he was basically running 2 sets of intellectual books to keep the peace. And the sources say he knew it was a compromise.
They do. Late in his life, after writing the giant Summa Theologiae, Aquinas had some kind of profound spiritual experience, and he famously said all his work was like chaff, like straw, worthless. He spent a lifetime building this forced reconciliation, and at the end, I think he saw its intellectual impurity. It was the system that politics demanded, but it wasn't the truth.
It's just a staggering human story.
Yeah.
Okay, so politically killed in Islam, theologically chained in Europe.
Yeah.
Now, reversal 3, the scientific revolution. The myth says science grew from this chain system.
No, absolutely not. It was a systematic campaign of opposition. Modern science, both natural and social, was born as an anti-Aristotelian momentum. It was basically an organized Aristotle mistake-hunting campaign.
And the irony is that the 1277 ban kind of gave them the list of mistakes to hunt for.
It did. It broke his authority and made the flaws into targets. Look at physics. Galileo, Descartes, Newton. They didn't just tweak Aristotle. They started by systematically destroying his entire physical worldview.
And what was the core thing they destroyed?
His whole idea of teleology, purpose. For Aristotle, a rock falls because its purpose is to get to the center of the earth. It desires its natural place. Galileo and the others just threw that out. They replaced it with a mechanistic view. A rock falls because an external force, gravity, acts upon it. not because of some internal desire. The scientific revolution was basically deleting the Aristotelian OS and installing a new mechanical one.
And this wasn't just in physics, it happened in social science, too.
But completely. The political philosophies of Hobbes and Locke are a total negation of Aristotle's politics. Aristotle's core belief was that humans are political animals by nature. The state is natural, and its purpose is moral, to help people achieve eudaimonia.
Which is human flourishing, the good life.
The good life, exactly. The state is there to make you a better person.
Yeah.
Hobbes and Locke just demolished that. They said the state is totally artificial. It's a contract we make out of fear just to secure basic survival. Not flourishing, just not dying.
So they took humans out of the natural political world and made them into, what, rational calculators?
Right. Every major modern field started by proving Aristotle wrong on some fundamental point.
And if you destroy the physics and the politics, the foundation, what happens to the top of his structure? To the ultimate cause, the unmoved mover.
It loses all logical support. The unmoved mover, the cosmic force that started everything in his system, it just becomes unnecessary. It goes from being a philosophical necessity to the unnecessary mover in the new clockwork universe.
God gets demoted.
He gets demoted to a distant watchmaker, the deus otiosus, the idle god. He winds up the universe and then just lets it run.
This leads to the final, and maybe the most fascinating paradox. We know our whole academic structure is Aristotelian. Physics, logic, ethics, biology. He created the filing system for all knowledge. And yet we call our schools academies after Plato, never the Lyceum after Aristotle. Why did he lose the PR war so badly?
It's the paradox of the empty vessel versus the full one. Plato's philosophy was abstract. You could call it empty of specific testable details, his forms, his ideal state. You can't prove them right or wrong with a telescope.
So he's always safe.
He's eternally safe. He's the perfect brand. You can plug Platonic ideals into Christianity or Islam, and he sounds high-minded. Aristotle, on the other hand, was full. His work was full of specific, detailed claims about biology, physics, government, and that was his weakness.
Because if you're specific, you can be proven wrong.
Exactly. By the 17th century, he'd been proven wrong on almost every detail. He was an unreliable, outdated authority figure. So the academic world put the safe Platonic brand on the door, the academy.
Even though the internal operating system that runs the whole place, that organizes all our knowledge, is still his. It's still Aristotelian classification.
That's the deepest irony. The very systems that destroyed him were standing on the organizational shelves he had built. They were using his framework to make their arguments against him. He is the most influential philosopher in history who was hated and destroyed into becoming the very foundation of the modern world.
It's an incredible structure when you lay it all out. He was used, then politically killed, adopted, then theologically chained, and finally systematically destroyed. And that very destruction created every field we study today.
It just shows you intellectual history is rarely a nice, clean story of inheritance. It's almost always a story of revolutionary negation.
And that structure, I think, gives us one final provocative thought to leave you with. If all our modern knowledge was born from a deliberate, systematic Aristotle mistake-hunting campaign, what major academic or political assumption are we currently too afraid to challenge? What system are we too invested in defending, and what new field might be waiting to be born from its intellectual destruction? That's something to think about until our next deep dive.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.